right, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the SnapVDI Virtual Lunch-n-Learn. My name is Tyler Newberry. I'm the Marketing Programs Manager for SnapVDI, and I'll be your host and moderator for the Lunch-n-Learn today. With me today is one of our Senior Account Executives, Andrew Lacey, as well as Solutions Engineer Matthew Tinney for the SnapVDI group. These guys will be joining us in just a moment, but first I want to go over a few quick things before we got started. So number one, if you are in a pizza delivery zone and you requested a pizza during your registration, that pizza should be arriving within the next few minutes if it has not already. Sometimes the delivery person does run a few minutes behind. If they are running late, just please be patient, but be sure to let us know if your pizza has not arrived by 1:10, 1:15 Eastern time or so. That's about the time that we realize that something's wrong and the pizza guy is not just running a little late. Email is the quickest way to let us know if your pizza has not arrived on time. The email you need to send that to is bennettc@ami.com, and I've also listed that in your chat screen. So like I said, if you have any pizza questions, you can send them to bennettc@ami.com and he will take care of you. And if you are located, again, if you're located on the West Coast, either in California, Oregon, or Washington, your pizza is scheduled to arrive at 11 a.m. local time, as that is the earliest that your restaurants out there open. Number two, please ask us questions. We want to provide as much of an interactive experience for all of you as that we can. So feel free to shoot your questions over via the Q&A communicator located at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and we'll either get to your question live on air or we'll send you a message back on the Q&A communicator if time permits. And finally, if we experience any technical difficulties such as losing audio or if the screen becomes grainy for a moment, just please bear with us while we wait out the issue, or if we fix it, if there's an actual problem that can be fixed. Technical issues are rare, but they're certainly possible. But that's it for my little spiel. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew for part one of our presentation today. So here you go, Andrew.
All right, thanks, Tyler, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And like Tyler mentioned, my name is Andrew Lacey, and I'm a member of the sales team here at AMI. And today we're going to be talking about virtual desktop infrastructures, or VDI, as well as our SnapVDI product line. So I'm going to be going through a quick slide deck, and then Matthew Tinney, one of our VDI engineers here, will show a live demo of the SnapVDI management interface called the SnapVDI Manager. So here's a quick agenda of what we're going to be covering in the presentation. I'll do an introduction into AMI as a company, just overall for those of you who aren't already familiar with us. We'll do an overview of VDI technology in general. Then we'll just dive headfirst into SnapVDI. So I'll do an introduction into SnapVDI. I'll explain the architecture and what sets us apart from other VDI solutions on the market today. We'll throw some real-world pricing out there to show you how we stack up to the competition. I'll give an overview of our SnapVDI support, and then we're just going to wrap things up with a live demo of the management interface. And as Tyler mentioned, please, seriously, don't hesitate to ask us questions throughout the presentation. We'll do our best to answer them via the chat on the WebEx as we go along. Sometimes we get a little bit more than we can handle at the time, so for those of you that we don't get to during the presentation, if that's the case, we'll be sure to contact you with answers following the event. So who is AMI? I'm sure a lot of you on this webinar are already very familiar with AMI through one of our various products. We were founded over 3 decades ago now in Atlanta, Georgia in 1985, and our original founder is still our president and CEO today. We have worldwide presence with 12 offices across the globe, including offices in the United States, of course, Germany, India, China, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea. However, our worldwide headquarters is here in Atlanta, Georgia. And this isn't just where our sales, marketing, and engineering sit, but perhaps most importantly, this is where all of our support is located as well. So if you do happen to call into support, you will be directly dialing an engineer sitting in Atlanta, Georgia. All of our support is US-based. We don't outsource our support or anything. We don't host any of that overseas. We have over 1,400 employees worldwide, over 80% of which are in engineering. So this is just a true testament to our focus on engineering high-quality products and offering them to our customers at fair prices. Our mission statement is providing our customers the highest quality products the first time, every time. And between all of our divisions at AMI, we have one or more products in over half the computers in the world. So whether you're aware of it or not, there's a really good chance your infrastructure has relied on at least one of our products to stay up and running over the years. We have well over 375 patents now, probably closer to 400 as a company, and we also have an ISO 9001 certification for those companies that require that. BIOS. I'm sure that the reason that many of you already know AMI is from AMI BIOS, and for those of you who weren't familiar with AMI before now, the images on this slide might be jogging your memory a little bit, hopefully. But we launched AMI BIOS in 1985, and this is just really undoubtedly what put AMI on the map. We quickly became the worldwide leader in BIOS software, which is a title that we have a very strong grasp on today, with over 65% of the BIOS market share worldwide and still growing. Millions of systems with BIOS ship every year, and everything from servers to storage arrays, laptops, desktops, and even a lot of the newer hardware like the Zero clients and the Thin clients for VDI, which is what we'll be talking about today. Another product line that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with is the MegaRAID controller card. We launched MegaRAID in 1994, and in just 2 short years, by 1996, we were the largest third-party manufacturer of RAID controller cards on the planet. We sold this division to LSI Logic in 2001, but in 2004, we brought the MegaRAID team, development team, back together, kind of brought the band back together and began developing our own high-performance SAN devices, which ultimately became our StoreTrends division. StoreTrends, this was founded in 2004 by the MegaRAID team and is the data storage division of AMI. StoreTrends manufactures high-performance SSD hybrid arrays, which is a combination of solid-state and spinning disk drives in the same unit, for those that are familiar with that architecture, as well as all-flash SAN arrays. We have thousands of these units shipped worldwide, installed worldwide, with a very heavy focus on the small to medium-sized business niche. And we have a lot of these systems deployed for VDI environments as well, as an integrated solution, which I'll touch a little bit more on in a bit here. And just real quick, the last AMI-centric company slide before we just jump into VDI is MegaRAC. This is our remote access controller division. We launched this division in 1997 and took on Dell as a customer the following year in 98 to manufacture their iDRAC card. We've also taken on HP as a customer since then, so for those of you that are familiar with those remote access controllers, iDRAC or the HP iLO card, that's really the same technology from our MegaRAC product line that we had provided out to Dell and HP. So, starting to get into VDI, what is VDI? I'm sure a lot of you on here are already very knowledgeable of what VDI is, what it entails, but we're going to start off with some of the basics just for those of you on here that aren't as familiar. So VDI stands for Virtual Desktop Infrastructure, and it is essentially bringing virtualization to that next level, that next stage. Nearly everything else in the IT infrastructure has already been virtualized. Your storage has been virtualized, your servers, your switches, and VDI virtualizes the end-user desktops. So with VDI, users' operating systems reside within a dedicated virtual machine VM on a central server or server cluster, and physical desktops are typically replaced with either a thin client or Zero clients that connect users to that central server or cluster. So simply put, it's a shift really from the local client-centric view to a central server-centric view, since all of your users' data, all of your users' resources are now coming from that central location. So what are some of the advantages of doing VDI, implementing VDI? The biggest advantage of VDI, hands down, is the ease of management. Since all users are centralized to a server or server cluster, you can now manage all of your users, monitor all of your users within your environment from just that single access point, which includes the ability to do mass software updates, software installations, patch updates, opposed to updating desktops one by one by one. So really just imagine being able to deploy hundreds of desktops with fully functional software suites with really just a few clicks of a mouse. Another advantage is uptime. VDI solutions, including SnapVDI, run on enterprise hardware opposed to the consumer-grade hardware that users are typically running on. So these solutions have full redundancy in the event of a failure, which translates, of course, into more uptime and therefore more worker productivity. Power savings. This is another big advantage that isn't commonly brought up. Zero clients use about 5 to 7 watts of power, whereas desktops use about 50 watts of power on average, so about a tenth of the power usage. And you can extrapolate that over your entire user base, over the term that you will have the solution. You can really begin to imagine the amount of power savings that you'll realize year over year. And the next one here is security. Opposed to traditional desktop infrastructures with numerous points that you have to protect, VDI only has a single point that you need to secure. You can also set policies and permissions at the user level to manage what users can and cannot access. You can lock USB ports to protect against user viruses, which will further cut back on external threats. And the last advantage here is versatility, pretty big one. With VDI, you can create different types of users, with the two main types being pooled, which is also called non-persistent, and then the other type is persistent. For those of you who aren't as familiar with these terms, a pooled user is one that really uses the same applications day in and day out, and they don't really need the ability to add software or to customize their desktop in any way. So, for example, if a pooled user downloads the software to the desktop, once they end that session, their user session, and log back in, that application will be gone. So pooled users can only use the applications that are part of the template that is created by the administrator, and their settings will revert back to that template at the beginning of each one of their sessions. All of their user data is saved, of course, but their settings will just remain the same. The software suites and applications that they have will remain the same. Persistent users, on the other hand, are basically just like traditional desktops in the sense that any software that's downloaded or settings that are adjusted are saved to that user. So those are the two primary different types of users you can create in VDI. And you can also integrate your own devices, which is called Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD. So you can log into the VDI via tablets or laptops or really any other mobile devices. So there are also two different types of VDI implementations. There's integrated and there's standalone. An integrated VDI solution utilizes your existing server and storage infrastructure, and this is most common for smaller VDI deployments where you can comfortably accommodate users on the existing hardware that you already have running. Standalone solutions, on the other hand, are dedicated to VDI. So the hardware and software is only put to use for the VDI solution, and these are more common for larger VDI deployments. A couple of the big advantages of a standalone VDI solution over an integrated solution are user management and performance. With a standalone solution, it's much easier to determine exactly what users are using what resources and how many resources they need, since they're contained in a segmented environment, whereas with an integrated solution, it's much more difficult to determine what resources you have available overall, how many resources you need for your users, how many users you can maintain without bogging down your entire infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So just to reflect the last slide, we have a lot of StoreTrends customers with high-performance hybrid or all-flash storage arrays that are running VDI on the units, but the majority of these customers are also running their production environments off of the unit, and they simply just added VMware Horizon View licenses or Citrix and desktop licenses as needed, like on an as-needed basis. So this would be considered an integrated solution. If you want to have everything on a single system, including your VDI environment, we have a good bit of StoreTrends customers doing this and would recommend this route, especially if you only have just a handful of VDI users. So if you only have 5 to 20 users or so and don't really plan on expanding much in the future, this may be the most economical route for you. SnapVDI, on the other hand, is a standalone solution, meaning this will be completely isolated and completely segmented from your production environment, your databases, applications. The only things SnapVDI utilizes are your existing network fabric, your DHCP server, Active Directory, and firewall. Everything else is completely standalone from a hardware and also a software perspective. So now we'll start going into more detail on SnapVDI's components and architecture. There are 5 main components that make up SnapVDI, and I have slides that are dedicated to each one of these that are coming up. But just to summarize them real quick before we get into that, Spark, that's our patented caching acceleration software that guarantees high performance and high quality user experience to each user. Manager is our interface that allows the administrator to manage and monitor the entire solution from a single access point. SnapVDI servers, this is 2 servers and high availability, or HA, for complete redundancy. SnapVDI storage is a fault-tolerant storage console that stores basically all of your users' data. And then, of course, the Zero Client, SnapVDI Zero Clients. These are the end-user devices that include our patented SnapVDI View firmware. And the last component here is Microsoft. SnapVDI does utilize Microsoft licenses, the majority of which a lot of the customers already have in their infrastructure already, that they can just repurpose for the solution. But if not, we can also provide these and include them with the SnapVDI solution, so they would just be pre-installed upon arrival for the installation. So here's just a visual representation of the SnapVDI architecture, and I think it's easier to explain this starting at the bottom of the chart and just kind of working our way up to the top. So at the bottom we have what's called the SnapVDI brick, and the brick includes the SnapVDI storage appliance, that JBOD, and the 2 SnapVDI servers in the HA setup with Microsoft Enterprise Cluster software running on the top of the server layer. Our SnapVDI Manager software resides on the Microsoft layer and comes pre-installed on the system. And this is where administrators create and deploy VMs for their users and really just manage everything. SnapVDI does plug into your existing network, which then connects SnapVDI to your users' Zero Clients. So you can also differentiate between pooled and persistent users. And as I mentioned a minute ago, the servers and storage make up what we call the SnapVDI brick. The 2 servers in the brick are in an HA configuration for complete redundancy with no single point of failure, just in the event of any type of hardware issue or hardware failure. So this ensures that your users are always up and running. Also, since the servers are fault tolerant, with one being active and then the other one being passive, we can actually upgrade the servers with 0 downtime and 0 maintenance windows, and we can do this by first upgrading the passive controller, passive server, then essentially performing a failover to the upgraded controller, then upgrading the now passive controller and failing back over. So no downtime required for hardware maintenance or software updates, which is a pretty big convenience there for a lot of our customers. The storage component is the central repository for all user data, and this is highly redundant. This is a dual controller RAID-protected array that also supports snapshots and replication for just complete data protection. We support replication between separate SnapVDI bricks. So, for example, if you have a few branch offices, each with their own brick, we can replicate between them for additional redundancy just to protect against any type of just a complete site disaster. Also, all the hardware in the storage console is field replaceable and hot swappable. So if you just need to replace a drive or a power supply, cooling fans, any of those just common hardware components, all this can be done on the fly without any type of disruption. Our Spark software, this is the primary differentiator between SnapVDI and the other VDI solutions out there on the market. This is a patented caching acceleration algorithm that utilizes auto-tiering functionality. So, opposed to most caching that follows that first in, first out FIFO methodology, Spark actually monitors how frequently the data is accessed at the block level, and it keeps this data on the cache layer, which is our RAM layer on the servers. And this ensures that you and your users receive extreme performance, really as well as an unmatched user experience. This is very similar to the auto-tiering technology that I'm sure many of you have on your primary SAN or NAS storage arrays, but we are the only vendor who has taken the time to develop our own software that's specifically geared toward delivering high performance to hundreds of VDI users simultaneously. Some of the highlights from Spark are, of course, performance, faster than desktop, and the entire VDI infrastructure can boot within seconds with immediate access to applications, huge advantage over traditional PCs. Far less physical storage because of the data deduplication that's being done on the cache layer, faster VM provisioning and cloning, and all of these ultimately translate, of course, into more user productivity. SnapVDI Manager is the interface that we'll show a demo of in a few minutes here. And this interface allows administrators to manage the entire VDI infrastructure, so all of your users from just a single access point. This is where you manage and monitor your users. This is where you provision system resources per user requirements. You can mass install software and patches, and also create desktop templates for your different types of users. So, for example, like a school could have one template for your students, you could have one template for your teachers, and you could have a separate template for your administrative staff. The VDI Manager can be accessed either locally or remotely as well, all from a single interface, just a single access point. The last SnapVDI component is the Zero Client, and this is the end-user device that typically replaces your bulky, desktop towers, and its primary purpose is just to route the user to their data and resources, their CPU, their RAM, GPU, what have you, on the central servers or the cluster. Our Zero Client uses about 7 watts of power, like I mentioned, compared to the average 50 watts of power that's needed by your typical desktop tower. And they also include our own firmware called View, and this works with our Spark technology to ensure high performance, but also allows us to do some cool stuff, like we can do USB port locking, so we can actually lock individual USB ports, which is great for security and virus protection, just making sure that no external threats brought in by any of your users, whether intentionally or unintentionally, makes its way into your network. Another cool feature is our network power on and power off, where you can schedule your Zero Clients to automatically power on and power off at certain times of the day, just to further increase your power savings. Our clients also support dual monitors, and we support both VGA and DVI connections, which can be simultaneously used if needed. Another thing worth noting here is that while we do provide our own Zero Clients, SnapVDI does function with other clients from other vendors. So if you already have clients in your environment, maybe you have an existing VDI implementation, and you already have some ProLogic thin clients or Dell-wise thin clients or anything like that, or you would just like to repurpose your desktops that are already in your environment, you can absolutely do so. However, that being said, our Zero Clients were specifically engineered to function with the entire SnapVDI solution as a whole. So they will deliver higher performance and a little bit more functionality than what you would realize with other thin clients or Zero Clients from other vendors. And just as a side note, we also offer our Zero Clients separate from the SnapVDI solution in case you would like to utilize these in an existing VDI setup. And as I mentioned earlier, the SnapVDI solution does require external Microsoft licenses, which I've just listed out here. There's 4 licenses in totals. 2 of these are dedicated on the server side, so we have the enterprise server licenses. These are going to differ depending on the CPU cores. And then we also have the software assurance pack. And then the other 2 are on a user-by-user basis. So we have the RDS license and then the VDA license per user. We can provide the entire solution. That includes the licenses if you don't already have them, but we don't include them by default. 2 main reasons behind this. First reason is that most of our customers already have at least 1 or 2 of these in their environment. And the second one is just pricing. A lot of organizations, especially like nonprofits, public sector, can obtain better pricing from Microsoft than what we can. So we don't want to penalize any of these customers by making them pay more for licenses or by making them pay for licenses that, again, that they already have. So once again, if you want all of the licenses included and you just don't want to, touch anything at all and just have a complete turnkey solution there, we can absolutely provide all these licenses to you that you need to be up and running, but the solution doesn't include them by default. So let's talk about the physical models that SnapVDI offers. So we now have 4 models for SnapVDI. We have a B50, a B100, B150, and then we have the new B300 brick. The B50 can maintain up to 50 standard knowledge users. The B100 can manage up to 100 users, B150, 150 users, and of course, B300 up to 300 knowledge users. And by the way, a knowledge user is essentially just a standard Office user. But you may notice that the B300 actually has less RAM than the B150. Reason behind this is that the B300 brick does include about a terabyte of usable SSD flash capacity that works in tandem with our RAM and our Spark layer to sustain that high performance for your virtual desktops. And once again, each brick includes 3 total units. There's 2 fault-tolerant servers and 1 dual controller storage appliance. Also, SnapVDI, pretty cool, has a modular expansion path. So this means that if you have, let's say, 200 users, you could have a B150, and then you could also have a B50. Or if, let's say, you have 400 users, we could spec out a B300 brick and then a B100. So essentially, with the bricks, we can hit any increment of 50 users. But we can also further refine our solution through the amount of zero clients that we provide. So let's say you have 250 users, we would possibly scope out a B300, but with only 250 zero clients, which will give you another 50 users to work with before you need to add another brick. So what are some of the advantages of SnapVDI specifically over other VDI solutions? The first one here is seamless integration. SnapVDI, we are the only turnkey, just true, ready-to-deploy hardware and software solution that just plugs into your existing network. So it's just one solution from one vendor. Multi-vendor solutions, on the other hand, can definitely get messy, especially when it comes to support. You've probably had a scenario just in your existing infrastructure right now, regardless of if you have VDI or not, where you have an issue and you call VMware, and they might point their finger at EMC or whoever you have for storage, and then they blame HP on the switch side, and then they kind of point their finger at Dell on the server side. Because SnapVDI is a complete solution, there is a single installation and just a single support call if any issues do happen to arise. Multi-vendor solutions are also almost always more expensive, which we'll take a look at in a second here, and they're almost never purpose-built for VDI. So while some of the components like VMware Horizon View or Citrix Desktop, those are specifically for VDI, they always rely on other commodity hardware, server hardware, storage hardware, or just an existing hardware infrastructure that's not specifically tuned or geared toward VDI. The next benefit is performance, and this is largely due to our proprietary Spark caching software that we covered earlier. The entire solution was purpose-built just from the ground up for VDI, for the intention of being used for VDI. And that's with any other IT product. When all the components are made just to work together, to understand each other, it just inherently guarantees higher performance and higher reliability across the system as a whole. And the last benefit here is the value. I'll compare our pricing to other VDI solutions in the next couple of slides here, which I just gave a sneak preview to. And you'll see we'll beat other vendor solutions by really at least 15%. We also offer free POC systems. So if you'd like to test and evaluate the equipment in-house for 30 days prior to purchasing, you can do so with zero risk, zero investment. And the way that we do our POCs, we actually send you a brand new system so that if you do decide to purchase the system at the end of the evaluation period, you can just simply roll into the unit, roll into the solution as your production VDI environment, opposed to just having to rip everything out, ship it all back, have a new system shipped out, have that system installed. So we avoid all that from the get-go. We typically include 10 zero clients with our POCs, so if you need more for your full rollout, we'll simply ship out the additional clients that are required for your project. If you're interested in doing a POC of SnapVDI, please reach out to Tyler Newberry. You probably all have received an email from him at some point prior to the event, and he'll be happy to send over further details on that process. And the next few slides here are just quick screenshots that are comparing pricing between us and just real-world competing VDI solutions. The first one is SnapVDI compared to a VDI solution that's comprised of pure storage on the storage piece. That's an all-flash array, VMware for the virtualization layer, and Cisco for the physical server layer. And you can pretty much replace some of these with their competitors. So for instance, I mentioned EMC earlier. You could probably put EMC in here instead of pure storage, or HP instead of Cisco for the server side, and you'll come out with more or less the same total price. But this is real-world pricing of what you would see for this solution. And you can see they both have the same type of hardware. We both have servers, we both have storage, and either zero clients within clients. Their solution uses VMware's virtualization software while we run on Microsoft, but the competing solution's priced noticeably higher, and their solution's about 20% higher cost per user than our SnapVDI solution. So for 150 users, you would save almost $47,000 with the SnapVDI solution. Same deal here, except we're competing or comparing against VMware and SnapVDI. SnapVDI is a hyper-converged vendor similar to Nutanix, meaning the servers and storage are combined into a single physical device. So similar to the last slide, regardless of whether we're looking at SnapVDI or Nutanix or Scale Computing, those other hyper-converged guys, the pricing will be more or less the same. All other things equal, the SnapVDI cost per user is about 15% less than this solution, even though we're using a 3-year support pricing compared to the 1-year term, and also while being just one vendor, one turnkey product. So for 150 users, you would save upwards of $40,000 with a SnapVDI solution in this instance. So this is the last pricing comparison slide that we added with the new B300 unit that compares pricing for 300 users between SnapVDI and the Dell Complete VDI solution. And we also threw physical desktops in here as well. So similar to the previous 2 slides, the Dell solution leverages VMware Horizon software, Horizon View software. And you can see at the bottom that we're nearly half the cost of the Dell solution, assuming 100% replacement of desktops with 0 clients across the board. And we're also slightly under the cost per user for physical desktops. Please keep in mind that we can repurpose desktops as well with our solution, which would just bring our price per user even lower. You'll notice we did assume $800 per desktop for this calculation, which I totally realize that this might be high for some of you, it might be high for some companies, but we're also considering a lot of the users with higher RAM and higher CPU requirements that can easily cost over $1,000 per desktop. But even if the physical desktop cost was below SnapVDI, it wouldn't truly be comparing apples to apples, since you would still be not realizing the benefits of VDI that we've covered, notably the versatility of mobility and BYOD, bring your own device, and just the simplicity of managing all of your users from within just that single management interface. And the last slide here before we jump into the demo is SnapVDI Support. One call, that's all. So once again, compared to other other VDI solutions, our support is a one-stop shop. Also, all of our support is based out of our headquarters here, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So we do not outsource our support to any of our international offices. Everything comes directly from our headquarters here. We offer both next business day on-site services as well as 4 on-site services for those 4-hour on-site services for those companies that require that, as well as 0 downtime maintenance and software upgrades. Our support terms range from 1 to 5 years, but we can also co-term our support plans. So if you would like them to, if you already have some software licenses in place, or you already have renewals on hardware that you have in place, and you would just kind of like to knock everything out at one time, we can also co-term our support terms to just make it whatever's most convenient for you. And that's all from me. At this time, I will go ahead and hand things over to Matthew, and he's going to show a live demo of the SnapVDI Manager.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Tinney. I'm a Solutions Engineer here at SnapVDI. And today I'll be walking you through our SnapVDI Manager, which is the one thing you need in order to handle and manage your entire VDI solution. So let me go ahead and log in here. First thing you'll see when you log in is our dashboard, which has all the functions and wizards that you need in order to navigate the SnapVDI solution. So let's see, the first thing we have here is a breakdown of our 2 servers. We can identify which one's active and passive and their ready state, as well as a breakdown of the resources allocated for our templates and VMs. We can also see our control panel, a wide array of different wizards that we provide to help roll out your solution even quicker, as well as manage it and make sure that you're keeping up to date with any requests. So, what I'd like to do here today is walk you through the life cycle, and the way we'll do that is start with creating or uploading our ISO image. Very simple. You put in your path to your share, download your ISO that'll be stored on our unit, and it can be referenced and built as a profile for multiple rollouts in the future. And I'll walk you through one of our wizards. This is from start to finish, everything you need for VDI. Very simple. First thing we'll do is grab the ISO that we uploaded. Next, we'd select the hardware. Typically, a template's comprised of two components, the ISO profile as well as the hardware profile, and this is how much resources will go into the VMs once they start being rolled out. The industry standard are task, knowledge, and power. Task users are what typically use simple applications such as checking their email with Exchange or handling documents, nothing too intensive. Next is knowledge. This is your typical user that would browse the internet, view videos, etc. And last is power user. Now these are more avid users that require more resources to handle things such as Photoshop or scripting or things of that nature. So we'll do the typical and go with knowledge. Next, we're tightly integrated with Active Directory. So what I'm going to do here is grab our administrator. Put in his credentials, and this will be the person that has the rights to edit and modify the VM prior to it rolling out into a template form. Lastly, we'll give a name for this VM. We'll say that this is going to be our, how about test OS? All right, the VM's now going to begin its creation. However, we want to go ahead and roll everything out. We can then afterwards go back into this template, select what applications we'd like to load into it as well as software, and then redeploy it to the collection we'll make here at the end. So as for our template, very simple. We'll just go ahead and say that this is our TestOS temp. And what we'd like our collection to be. We'll say that this is actually going to be for our sales department. We'll signify all the VMs that are spawned from this template with an S. We have two options. We can go with pooled, desktop, or personalized. So pool is what you typically see from libraries or the education department, where all of the VMs rolled out are absolutely identical. They're all handled in sync, and when a user logs off, they reset to their default form, which gives you that increased security that VDI makes available. The other is personalized. This is for users that want full control over their VM, very in line with what you'd see from your own home computer. Everything you'd like can be personalized. But for this, we'll say our sales department all need exact duplicated VMs. We'll go with pooled. We'll say that we have 5 employees that require VMs, and they only need about 10 gigs of storage per user. And of course, that is scalable anywhere that you'd like. Next, we'll select what users we'd like to be able to access these VMs. So I'll just grab some arbitrary names from our list. Now that they're selected, they'll have access to VMs once they're rolled out. Quick checklist to make sure that we like everything that we're doing. We're running on Windows 7. We also support 8, 8.1, and 10. We have them running at 2 processors as well as 2 virtual gigs of RAM. Making a template, as well as we've notified which department will have access to this. And finish. Now that's done. The creation process will go ahead and start beginning. Here we can keep track of the rollout, make sure that there's no snags, and if there is, we'll be notified. Instead of a success or pending, we'll see an error, as well as a hyperlink to give us a general idea of what went wrong, how to fix it, and what to relay to support should it be a larger problem than anticipated. All right. Now that we have everything rolled out, let's go ahead and see what it looks like to view our collections. So I'll go here to the virtual desktop wizard, or the desktop explorer, I'm sorry. And here we can see all of the different collections we've rolled out. So purple tag signifies our personalized users, whereas the blue tag is our pooled users. So here we can go down to our mega pool, for example. These are 10 VMs that are absolutely identical. We have a variety of different tools we can keep track of these with, as well as the ability to connect to them should we need to view the active session or not. But most importantly, for pooled sessions, we're able to use a lot of tools on them, such as adding and removing VMs if we have a new employee, for example, that comes in and needs to access a VM on top of everyone else, as well as make modifications to it if there is a change in requirements as far as software or applications go, as well as add the different users and redeploy the desktops if any changes need to be made, such as adding new patches and software. We can automatically update and distribute everything to all of these VMs simultaneously. And just in case we have the need to, we can shut down and power off all these VMs with a click of a button. We can also view this on a user session level. So here we can see a breakdown of which clients are being accessed, who's on them, as well as how long they've been logged on for and what time they logged on. Beyond just the VDI aspect, we also provide you a breakdown of all the physical components. Like I said, this SnapVDI Manager does have all the functionality and tools you need to manage everything in your solution. So that's provided as well. We can see a breakdown of all of our components, their health, their statuses, and what needs to be fixed and changed on those. In addition to all of that, we also support our alert system. This is a list of different alerts that can occur, and if you allow us to, we can also have those automated to our support so they're notified the second anything happens as you are. Not only do we have some default alerts built into the system, but we also provide our customers with the ability to make custom alerts should they need to be notified of something specific that occurs in their system, such as an access to a VM at an odd hour during the night or outside of typical work sessions. They'd be informed. We also have a breakdown of all the licenses that you might need for your solution, such as licensing for applications and software within the VMs themselves, on top of the other licenses that Andrew Lacey mentioned earlier. All that can be kept track of here. We can see a breakdown of how many we have, where they're distributed to, and when they expire, so all that information is provided to us. We also have the ability to view all of our distributed zero clients and see exactly their current status, as well as the ability to lock, turn them off, rename them, or take control should we need to. Last thing we have to provide you more control is our client policy editor and user policy assignment. What this does is give you more control over the people who are accessing these VMs from a zero client. So for example here, we can select a variety of different options to enable or disable certain functionalities to give you more security on your device, such as limiting the ability to change Wi-Fi, the firmware settings, disabling unutilized USB jacks so no one can just walk into your office, plug in a USB and auto-execute. We can shut that down as well. And of course, we can assign who gets what priorities, who's going to be the administrators, who's our guests, who's our sales department. All of that can be set as well. All right, and that is a general overview for the SnapVDI Manager.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matthew. We've got about 15 or so minutes left. So we're going to dive into some questions that we've received during the registration process. And again, if you guys have any more questions that you want to ask, feel free to shoot those over via the Q&A communicator. And like I said, we can answer them right now before we get out of here. So we'll just go ahead and start knocking these out from the registration process. So first one for Andrew. This comes from Gary in Tennessee. I know you've kind of already delved into this a little bit, but can you just kind of hit the highlights again of the advantages of doing VDI instead of physical desktops?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like you said, we definitely covered this pretty length for a good bit, but absolutely the biggest benefit of VDI over just a physical traditional desktop infrastructure is going to be the ease of management. Just the ability to manage all aspects of what your users need, regardless of the applications that they have, but also to provision the applications just from within this manager that we're looking at right here. The ability for management is definitely going to be the biggest one. Cost is also a biggest one in the long term. And then you also have power savings, security, redundancy, and the reliability. And then also probably the versatility would be a huge one too, just the ability to have mobile users, and then especially for companies that have multiple branch locations. There are a lot of customers that have that set up where they have just one SnapVDI brick at a central location, and they have multiple branch offices. They're kind of satellite offices around that central location. We can have each one of those branch offices can have just 0 clients there that are just connected into the network, but then routed back to that central server or that central brick. So really just the ability to have all those remote users, and then you can also provision and work with them as opposed to having to drive to those remote locations for any type of repair or support. Things like that. Those are definitely the biggest advantages there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that question, Gary. Next one comes to us from Oscar in California. This one will also be for Andrew. But as far as the equipment that's required to have a successful implementation of SnapVDI, can you just go over all of the equipment that's required again, including the switches, licensing, OS licensing, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So this is really a turnkey solution, which is one of the things that's going to separate us from the other software-only guys out there, which seem to be the main players in the VDI space that we compete with. So our solution is going to include 3 primary pieces of hardware to comprise the brick. That's going to be those 2 servers in the HA configuration, and then the JBOD for the storage, which is just a direct attached storage console that is directly attached to each one of those servers. And then, of course, the 0 clients. We provide all of these hardware components. We do not provide the switch. If you recall the architecture overview that we kind of covered midway through the presentation, this does just plug into your existing switch environment, but it's still an isolated solution. So the only thing that we don't include by default is going to be those Microsoft licenses. But we can include them if you would like them included. Whenever we send out any type of quotes to our customers, though, we always include exactly what Microsoft license is with the part numbers, the quantity, everything. So you can also check to see, do I already have some of these that I'm working with and I don't need to buy them again? Can I get a better price than maybe we could offer you? And then you can also, research them and get them yourselves if you need to. But once again, we can include those if it would just make it easier for you. Everything else is included.
Awesome. Thank you again, Oscar, for that question. Next one comes to us from Michael, also in California. Just kind of flat out, what experience do we bring to the table in terms of VDI, and what are the main reasons that customers should elect to go with SnapVDI?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about experience. We have over 3 decades of experience as a leader in the technology industry. Any technology company that's been around for that long, hats off to them. This is a very, as everyone knows, a very tumultuous industry to be in, and a lot of companies that seem to pop up all the time. It's can be very difficult to stay relevant, and we have absolutely been very successful in doing that. Between all of our visions, all of our experience, we just have an insane amount of experience, not just in VDI, but really even in all of the components. I mean, our SnapVDI solution utilizes other products that we've developed over the past 30 years.
So really, it kind of just speaks for itself. You should go with us or other VDI solutions, kind of two-part of there. The biggest one's going to probably be the really kind of hand-in-hand, I guess, the support and then the simplicity. So we are hardware and software, and how that plays into support. It just means that if you do ever have any questions, if you have any issues or concerns with the product, you just call our direct line. You will be directly calling one of the engineers that sits here in Atlanta, Georgia, and you don't have to kind of go through, is this latency stemming from the VMware side? Is it stemming from the Dell Zero client or what have you? We support everything since we provide everything. So that would be probably the biggest selling point there against any type of other VDI solution.
Perfect, perfect. Next question, I believe, is from Matthew. This is from Jason in Oregon. Matthew, so how are latency issues addressed with SnapVDI?
Right. Okay, I think he's referring to latency as far as the experience the users might have. Well, I'm glad you asked. One of the great things about the way we set up our templates and VMs is we provide you the ability to customize your hardware profile. Not only do we provide defaults, as I showed in the demonstration here today, but you can also customize that in a way where you can provide users with more RAM, more virtual CPU to overcome the hurdles that they might face, as well as setting them to dynamic use, such that they will only be allocated those resources should the need arise.
Perfect, perfect. So Andrew, this one comes to us from Fred in Georgia. They have a large administrative staff that could benefit from VDI, and they want to know how this solution can lower their long-term costs.
Yeah. The biggest long-term cost savings you'll have, well, for one, a good rule of thumb is that usually the larger the implementation, the greater or the larger the number of users, the more that you will benefit, especially from a pricing perspective, with a VDI solution. The best long-term cost that we usually see is also stemming from the simplicity of the management. You're not running all over the place, especially if you have remote branch offices. You're not having to travel from location to location to support users all over the place, install hardware, replace desktops, what have you. So really, it does depend on a few factors. The number of, as you mentioned, a large administrative staff, how many, what is considered large, how many users do you have? The more users you have, the more savings you'll have with the VDI solution. And then also, where are these users located? What type of applications are they running? What's their workload look like? There's definitely a lot of factors that come into this, but, especially with large instances, really VDI has tremendous benefits from a budgetary perspective.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of combine the next two questions into one. We got one from Daniel in North Carolina who wants to know how SnapVDI differs from VMware Horizon. And we also had a question from Sean in New York on how SnapVDI differs from Citrix. So Andrew, if you can just kind of give us a quick comparison of SnapVDI to those two alternate solutions, I think that would be perfect.
Yeah. Great questions. The biggest difference really is just naturally going to be that we also include hardware. So not only do we have the software component there that they're utilizing, but we also have the servers that you need that are spec'd out, built from the ground up, intended for VDI, as well as the storage, as well as the Zero client. So the hardware is really a big component of VDI solution. Just means you don't have to go to a solutions provider that's going to have a premium on assembling all of this and installing it for you, or you just don't have to go out and try to build this entire thing yourself. So the simplicity there of just having everything turnkey, having all the components that you need just in one package, that's going to be the biggest difference. And I don't want to sling mud on those guys. I'd rather talk a little bit more about what we do better. But we have heard very favorable things when compared our performance to those two vendors.
Awesome, awesome. Next one from Matthew. This comes from Jim in New York. Matthew, can you just speak, I guess, a little bit towards SnapVDI security and its ease of deployment?
Absolutely. So VDI in general, one of the contributing factors to the shift towards VDI is its security. The reason that is everything is central in our server setup. So if any virus does occur to in one of the VMs, the administrator would have easy access to redeploy and kill that session, completely eliminating any type of malware or viruses that might have infected the VM. In a pooled circumstance, it's automatic. The second the user logs out, 10 minutes later, fresh session would occur. Nothing was saved or downloaded from the virus's point of view, completely safe on that end. And on a personal level, a personalized VM, the administrator also has the power to simply click and redeploy that as well. As far as the ease of deployment, to your question, it couldn't be simpler. We would send you a consideration document getting us the needed information in order to roll out quickly. It would include things like the IP scope and a couple questions regarding what applications and software. We would like to build the templates that you request in-house prior to showing up on site, because we all know how long it takes to watch Windows update and, of course, download any software that you might require. So we'd like to do that in-house before showing up on site. We'll rack the hardware for you. We'll turn it on. We'll check the IPs and their scopes, make sure that they're connected appropriately, as well as set up the VMs and the zero clients if you required any, to make sure their communication is good. Very simple process. We can be in and out throughout a simple work day. And of course, we do provide training while we're on site doing our installation as well.
Perfect, and we'll go ahead and knock out one last question here, because a lot of the remaining questions we have, I think have already been answered in the previous questions. So the last question we had comes from Bruce in North Carolina. He wants to know what version of Windows Server is required.
Absolutely. So what we use is MS 2012 R2.
Perfect, perfect. Is there anything else required at all?
No.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, again, we want to thank everyone for participating in today's virtual Lunch and Learn. It was an absolute privilege and a pleasure to present to all of you. After the event, when you exit out of WebEx, you should be redirected to the SnapVDI.com website, where you can learn a little bit more about SnapVDI. If you have any questions or would like to see any pricing, you can kind of maneuver around the website and find the link to the pricing tab, where you can request a personalized quote, which we can send to you, today actually, if you fill it out this afternoon. But like I said, and we also just set up recently a all-new interactive blog that you guys can subscribe to if you want more information on SnapVDI. That is also on the website under the blog tab. Feel free to subscribe, and we'll be happy to send you more information on VDI as it becomes available and as it becomes more pertinent in the marketplace. But for myself, Andrew, and Matthew, thank you so much again, and we look forward to presenting to you guys again in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, bye.